Do you know that every time you kneel in prayer, you're not just speaking words into the air? You're opening the gates of heaven, and grace begins to flow down into your life. Prayer is not a ritual. It's not empty repetition. Prayer is the breath of the soul, a sacred meeting between your heart and the heart of the Creator. When you pray, you are not merely asking. You are connecting to the source of life, the wellspring of strength, and the endless river of blessings that flows from God Himself. In the moment you close your eyes and whisper, "Lord," all of heaven listens. Whether you are alone in a small room, surrounded by sorrow, or standing in the darkness of despair, God is there. He is not distant. He is not silent. He is waiting just to hear one sincere word from your heart. We often think prayer belongs to the holy, to priests, to saints, to those pure in spirit. But no, prayer is for everyone. It's for the weary, the broken, the lost. Prayer is the way God steps into your life, mends what's broken, heals what's wounded, and reignites what's gone cold. Perhaps you've had days like that, when everything seemed to fall apart, when no one understood you, when you tried but still failed, when it felt as if God had forgotten you. Yet, in those very moments of darkness, prayer becomes the light that guides you back to faith. Prayer doesn't change God. It changes you. It transforms how you see the world, how you respond to trials, and how deeply you trust that good will prevail. When you pray, your heart grows softer, your mind calmer, and your spirit steadier in His grace. Think of every prayer as a seed. When you plant it with faith, even if you don't see it growing, God is working beneath the surface. He waters it, nurtures it, and in His perfect time, that seed blossoms into blessings. Many people pray and feel nothing, then give up. They think God isn't listening. But friend, God's silence is not His absence. Sometimes He works in silence, preparing something far greater for you. Something that would have been too soon if given before you were ready to receive it. Remember this: God's grace is not earned. It's given. It's not a reward for perfection. It's a gift of love. Even when you stumble, even when you fall, His arms remain open. He doesn't count how many times you've failed. He counts how many times you've come back to Him in prayer. And when you pray with gratitude, miracles begin to unfold. Anxiety fades, peace enters. You begin to see that God's grace isn't something distant or mystical. It's alive, moving in every breath, in every sunrise, in every moment you live. You may not see God with your eyes, but you'll see the traces of His presence everywhere, in a heart that's healed, in an unexpected opportunity, in a comforting word that arrives just in time. That is grace, and you'll realize that nothing in your life is random. Everything is divinely arranged to teach you to trust, to draw you closer, to remind you that your strength comes not from yourself, but from Him. In the next part, we will go deeper into this mystery. How prayer can become more than words. How it can become a transforming force that moves you from despair to hope, from weakness to strength, from worrying to peace. Remember this truth: when you pray with your whole heart, you open the door for God's grace to flood your life. And in that moment, what once seemed impossible becomes possible. Have you ever wondered why some people seem to live in peace, even though their lives are filled with challenges just like everyone else's? They may not be wealthy or powerful, yet there is something radiant in their eyes, a peace that comes from prayer. Prayer is the key that unlocks the treasure of God's grace. When you pray, you are inviting God into your life, not necessarily to change your circumstances immediately, but to change you within them. God doesn't always calm the storm, but He teaches you how to stand firm in the middle of it. When you kneel, you are not lowering yourself. You are being lifted up. The world teaches you to be strong by relying on your own power. But God teaches that true strength is born from humility. He isn't searching for perfect people. He is seeking hearts that are open enough for Him to enter. Prayer is not just speaking. It's also listening. Sometimes you pray and feel like God is silent. But if you quiet your heart long enough, you will hear His voice in the smallest of ways. In a word of encouragement from someone, in a closed door that leads to a better path, or simply in a sense of peace that words cannot explain. That's how God speaks to you. And sometimes prayer is not, "Lord, please do this for me," but, "Lord, make me ready to receive what you have for me." When you pray like that, you are no longer just asking. You are growing. You are becoming spiritually mature. Every sincere prayer you make is recorded in heaven. Not one is forgotten. Some prayers are answered quickly. Some are delayed so you can learn. And some are denied because God knows what you want is not what you truly need. Yet, in every case, His grace flows in a way you may not yet recognize. If you're listening right now and something in your heart feels touched, I invite you to drop an amen or comment, "I believe in God's grace," below. When you publicly express your faith, you're not only affirming your own belief, but also inspiring others who may be struggling in theirs. Let the world see that faith is alive, and that God's grace is still moving in this world today. Someone once said, prayer doesn't change the world. It changes people, and changed people change the world. Truly, the power of prayer is invisible yet unstoppable. It softens hardened hearts, heals wounded souls, and brings light to places where hope once died. Try starting your day with prayer, and you'll notice the difference. Everything seems to slow down. Peace begins to fill your mind. Instead of fearing what's ahead, you start trusting that God is in control. Even if you must walk through the valley of darkness, you'll know there's a guiding hand leading you forward. Prayer doesn't always need perfect words. Sometimes all you can say is, "Lord, I'm tired." And that's enough. Because God doesn't listen to your eloquence. He listens to your heart. He understands your tears better than your sentences. He knows your pain even when you can't describe it. As you learn to pray not only to ask, but to thank, your whole perspective shifts. You start to see that God's grace isn't distant. It's woven into every breath, every sunrise, every small miracle you often overlook. In the next part, we'll go deeper into how to pray with unwavering faith. Not just to feel God's grace, but to live in it daily. Because grace is not only meant to be received, it's meant to be shared. And when you share it, God multiplies it back to you abundantly. There are prayers that rise only to the lips, and there are prayers that shake the very gates of heaven. The difference lies in one thing: faith. Prayer is not just speaking your desires aloud. It is believing that what you ask for will happen, even when there is no visible sign. Faith doesn't look at circumstances. It looks at the power of the Creator. When you pray with faith, you are declaring, "Lord, I believe you can," and at that moment, grace begins to move in your life. Jesus once said, "If you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, 'Move,' and it will move." That was not a metaphor. It was a promise. True faith can make the impossible possible. But to have such faith, you must learn to believe even when your eyes see nothing. Even when everything around you tells you it can't be done. Many people pray out of desperation, but do not truly believe that God will act. They say, "Lord, please help me." Yet deep inside, they still fear, still doubt, still hold on to anxiety. And that doubt quietly blocks the flow of grace. God cannot move freely in a heart that has not yet chosen to trust Him completely. Faith doesn't appear overnight. It is forged through trials, through unanswered prayers, through seasons of silence, through moments when you thought everything was lost, but God still held you together. Every time you endure hardship and keep praying anyway, your faith grows stronger. That is the journey of the soul. to believe even without seeing, to walk even when the path is unclear. Faith does not mean believing that God will do everything your way. It means believing that He will do what's best for you. Grace doesn't always come in the form you expect. Sometimes you pray for a door to open, but God closes it because He knows a cliff lies beyond. Sometimes you pray for the storm to end, but He lets you go through it, not to harm you, but to teach you how to stand firm. Praying with faith is not about forcing God to act according to your plan. It is about aligning yourself with His and trusting that His plan is good. It's when you say, "Lord, I don't understand why this is happening, but I trust You are working something good for me." That kind of surrender shakes the heavens. Every prayer said in faith sets something in motion in the spiritual realm, even if you can't see it. Angels are moving, doors are unlocking, and God's plans are quietly taking shape for your good. Some may ask, if God already knows everything, why should I still pray? The answer is simple. Prayer is not to change God's mind. It is to change your heart. When you pray, you learn to trust, to wait, and to love Him more deeply. There will be times when you don't receive what you asked for, but when you look back, you'll realize that God always gave you something better. That is the mystery of grace. God doesn't always give you what you want, but He always gives you what you need. When you begin to pray with true faith, you'll notice a difference. Fear starts to fade, anxiety loosens its grip, and peace takes root in your soul. You start to sense God's hand in every small detail of your life, in a chance encounter, an unexpected opportunity, a door opening at just the right time. These are signs of grace, moving through your faith. If the first part of your journey was about discovering prayer, this part is about deepening it, where your words gain power, and your faith turns your prayers into heavenly action. In the next part, we will explore the strength of persistence in prayer, because grace is not only for those who ask, but for those who keep believing. Keep praying and never give up, for there are miracles that only appear when you refuse to stop praying, refuse to stop trusting, and refuse to give up. There are prayers that God answers immediately, but there are also prayers that seem to echo in silence, where you wait, sometimes with tears, wondering if heaven is still listening. Yet, dear friend, that waiting is never in vain. While you persist in prayer, God is shaping your faith and preparing a blessing far greater than you asked for. In the Bible, many who received God's favor did so not because they prayed once, but because they never gave up. Remember the Canaanite woman who begged Jesus to heal her daughter, even after being tested, even when it seemed like she was turned away. She persisted, saying, "Lord, help me." And finally, Jesus answered her, not because He changed His mind, but because her faith was steadfast and unwavering. Perseverance in prayer is the proof of genuine faith. When you continue to pray even when nothing seems to happen, you are saying to God, "I still trust You, even when my eyes cannot see." That kind of faith touches heaven, because you are believing not in the situation, but in His nature. Sometimes, God delays not because He has forgotten you, but because He is preparing you. Great grace cannot be poured into a heart that is unready. God wants you to learn patience, to grow in trust, and to mature in stillness. And that very process, the refining of your heart, is the first miracle. When your prayers seem unanswered, do not despair. Often, before God changes something for you, He changes something in you. You may be praying for circumstances to shift, but He is transforming your heart from within, teaching humility, endurance, and unwavering faith. Look at Abraham. God promised him descendants as countless as the stars. Yet he waited 25 years before seeing that promise fulfilled. During that time, there were countless moments when he could have doubted, but he held fast, and that steadfast faith made him the father of many nations. When you pray and see no miracle, Don't assume God is silent. In the spiritual realm, He is moving. He may be aligning situations, preparing people, or opening unseen doors. God's silence is not His absence. It is the sound of divine preparation. Every tear you've shed, every whispered prayer, is recorded in His heart, and in His perfect time. Never too early, never too late. He will answer in a way that exceeds your expectations. Maybe you've prayed for so long that you feel like giving up. But remember this, the final prayer, the one uttered when you have almost no strength left, is often the most powerful one. Just when you feel you can't go on, that's when grace is nearest. Hold on a little longer, because the blessing may be waiting right beyond the door of your faith. Persistent prayer is like knocking on a door. Those who knock once and walk away will never see it open. But those who keep knocking, out of faith, not desperation, will see it swing wide. Jesus Himself said, "Ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and the door will be opened." Not because God enjoys watching you plead, but because through perseverance, your heart expands to receive His full grace. You might think faith is about emotion, that when you feel close to God, you believe, and when you don't, your faith weakens. But true faith is not a feeling. It's a decision to believe even when heaven is silent, to trust even when the evidence fades. That choice transforms your relationship with God into something uncheckable. Every moment you continue to pray, you are building an invisible bridge between earth and heaven. And when the time comes, grace will flow down that bridge, not only answering your prayer but surpassing your imagination. In the next part, we will reach the summit of this journey, where prayer no longer stops at receiving grace, but overflows into living in grace, sharing it, and spreading it to everyone around you. Because prayer is not just words rising to heaven. It is grace flowing from heaven into your heart, then pouring outward to touch the world. Some people pray only when they're in need, but there are others who turn their entire lives into a living prayer. They do not simply ask. They live in the presence of God every moment. And when that happens, His grace doesn't just visit them for a season. It abides within them, grows stronger in them, and radiates through every word, every action, and every breath. Prayer is not only the beginning. It is how you sustain your connection with the Father above. When you pray continually, your soul becomes like a gentle river flowing from the source of God's grace. Every time you open your heart, that stream refreshes you, washing away fear, anxiety, and pain, leaving behind a peace so deep that the world cannot offer it. To live in grace means to see everything through the eyes of faith rather than the eyes of the flesh. When hardship comes, you no longer ask, "Why me?" but instead, "Lord, what are you teaching me through this?" When blessings come, you no longer boast, but give thanks for His mercy. And when everything seems to collapse, you still whisper with confidence, "I know, Lord, you are still working all things for my good." Those who live in grace no longer seek blessings. They become blessings. Because once you have received the love of God, it cannot remain locked within you. It must be shared. You will find yourself drawn to kindness, to comforting the broken, to helping the weary, to praying even for those who have wronged you. That's when you stop talking about faith and start living it. Imagine a world where every person begins their day with prayer and steps out into the world carrying grace in their hearts. There would be less anger, less division, less selfishness, and more compassion, forgiveness, and hope spreading everywhere. You can be the one to start that change. One prayer you whisper today could transform not only your soul but also the life of someone you've never met. God does not call us to Him merely to receive, but to become vessels of His love and grace. When you give thanks, when you share, when you love, you allow His grace to flow through you, touching those around you. That is the true purpose of prayer. Not for grace to stop in one heart, but to multiply across thousands. Maybe today you feel tired, lost, or burdened. Pause for a moment, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and simply say, Lord, I'm here, please guide me. You don't need fancy words. God is not looking for perfect prayers. He's looking for a sincere heart. And when you do that, you will begin to sense something sacred. Grace surrounding you like a soft morning breeze, quietly reminding you that He is still here, still loving you, still guiding you every step of the way. Let every day begin with a prayer and end with thanksgiving. Because when you pray, you invite grace to enter. And when you give thanks, you keep grace alive. Then your life will become living proof of this truth. Those who live in prayer live in grace. Thank you for walking with me through this journey. Pray and receive the wonderful grace of God if you've felt peace in your heart. If you've touched even a small part of God's love through these words, I invite you gently to subscribe to this channel so that together we can continue growing in faith, in prayer, and in the endless grace of our Lord. Because God is always with you, and He's waiting to hear the prayer that rises from your heart today.